When did you know? And be honest. When did you know that your last relationship was over? Not when did you fight? When did things get hard? But when did the love fade? For some, it was sitting alone in the dark, crying over the same problems for a year, realizing that after 365 nights of hoping and pleading and waiting, nothing had changed. For others, it was waking up next to their partner feeling like a complete stranger. And for most, it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was one single moment, a moment that wasn't supposed to mean anything, except it did. Because by the time you noticed it, it was already too late. Because love doesn't just die from anger, betrayal, or distance. It dies from something far more dangerous: neglect, indifference, and complacency. And if you're watching this, I need you to stay until the end, because what I'm about to tell you will save your relationship from breaking apart. I'm Jordan Travers. I'm a licensed therapist, and I want to help you understand what's happening, because this time you don't have to lose them. Most relationships don't end in chaos. They end in silence. They end in the goodnight kisses that stopped, in the "how was your day" that turned into a routine response, in the conversations that used to last for hours but now barely last a minute. And the worst part, you didn't even notice it was happening. At first, you assume you're just tired, that life is busy, that things will go back to how they were. But slowly, love stops feeling like something that pulls you closer and starts feeling like something that you're just maintaining. Psychologists call this emotional disengagement, the slow, quiet withdrawal from intimacy that happens when couples stop actively investing in their connection. Dr. John Gottman, one of the leading researchers in relationship psychology, has studied couples for over 40 years, and he found that it's not conflict that predicts divorce. It's indifference. In his research, he discovered something pretty alarming. Couples who still fight actually have a chance. And couples who stop responding to each other's bids for attention, affection, or support, well, they're already halfway gone. At first, it's subtle. Your partner tells you a story about their day, and instead of engaging, you just nod. They reach for your hand, and you don't pull away, but you don't squeeze back either. They say, "I miss you," and you say, "I miss you too," but do you? Until one day your partner just stops trying. Because when love starts to feel like a one-way street, eventually someone decides to stop walking. So here are the 3 psychological traps that make you complacent. Number 1, the "we're fine" lie. The biggest mistake couples make is that they confuse comfort with security. The relationship isn't bad. There's no huge fight. No one is actively pulling away. So you assume, well, we're fine. But fine is dangerous, because fine isn't love. Fine is autopilot. It's going through the motions, thinking you have time to fix things later, thinking your partner will always be there, thinking effort is only needed when things feel wrong. Love doesn't die when something goes wrong. It dies when nothing happens at all. Number 2, loss aversion, why you avoid facing the truth. Psychologists call it loss aversion, this idea that we fear losing what we have more than we desire something better. But what does that mean for relationships? It means that people stay in relationships not because they're deeply happy, but because they're afraid of losing what they have. You don't want to risk confrontation. You don't want to feel the discomfort of change. You don't want to face the reality that things need fixing. So you convince yourself this is just what long-term love looks like, but it's not. Because the difference between a dying relationship and a lasting one isn't how long you've been together. It's how often you choose to keep building it. Number 3, the slow fade, how later becomes too late. Ask anyone who has ever lost someone they loved, not because of a breakup, but because of neglect, and they'll tell you the same thing. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought we had time to fix it. I assumed they knew how I felt. And that's how it happens. Not in one day, but in all the days you said later and never followed through. Later, I'll plan a date. Later, I'll ask how they're really feeling. Later, I'll tell them that I appreciate them. until one day they stop waiting for later. And all you're left with is the realization that you had a chance to save your relationship and you didn't take it. So how do you figure out complacency is creeping in your relationship? Complacency isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It looks like taking each other for granted, assuming they'll always be there so you stop showing up for them, going through the motions, saying I love you out of habit, not because you feel it at that moment, forgetting to choose them, letting your partner fade into the background while life takes center stage. You don't see the problem because everything looks fine. No one is fighting, no one is leaving, but love isn't something you just have. It's something you choose over and over again. If you feel like your relationship is fine but not alive, you need to ask yourself, when was the last time I made my partner feel deeply seen? When was the last time we had a conversation that didn't revolve around logistics? When was the last time I looked at them and felt something other than familiarity? Because the relationships that last aren't the ones that never struggle. They're the ones where both people never stop showing up. Stay with me. This is where things start to change. And don't forget to take notes. Here are 3 simple fixes to break your complacency cycle. Number 1, the 5-minute rule to rebuild emotional connection. Every day, set aside 5 minutes of undistracted attention. No phones, no TV, no multitasking. And ask, how are you really? Or what's one thing that I did this week that made you feel loved? Couples who engage in intentional daily check-ins report higher levels of intimacy and emotional connection because love isn't just about time together, it's about attention. Number 2, the gratitude reset to reverse emotional distance. Neglect creeps in when appreciation disappears. Studies have found that couples who regularly express gratitude feel more valued, more connected, and more committed. So try this. Instead of thanks for dinner, say, I love how you always remember my favorite meal. It makes me feel so cared for. Instead of, I appreciate you, say, I appreciate how you always check in on me after a hard day. It means a lot to me. It's in these random moments of kindness that's a reminder that you really see each other. And number 3, are we still choosing each other? Conversation. Once a month, sit down and ask each other, if we met today, would we still choose each other? What's something we've stopped doing that made us feel close? This isn't about blame. It's about awareness, because love doesn't last because you had it once. It lasts because you keep choosing it. Now it's your turn to save your relationship. What's one small thing you'll do today to reconnect? Drop it in the comments because I want to hear it. And if this hits home, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone else who needs to hear it. Because love isn't lost in a single moment, but it can be saved in one. I'm Jordan Travers. I'm the Clinical Director of Awake Therapy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.